Hey guys, this is God of Politics. Welcome back to a brand new video. In this video, I'm going to be doing my updated 2020 Battleground Map between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. This is not necessarily a prediction video. This is not how I'm predicting these states to go. This is what I'm saying these states at this point, how they would go. At this point, are they trending this way? Are they trending that way? How are they leaning? How are they tilting to either direction? And how will it affect the campaign? What states will they be campaigning in? Now, with Joe Biden, he's almost secured the nomination here. Bernie Sanders will probably drop out any day now, unless he keeps going. But regardless, Joe Biden is going to win the nomination here, and that will set up a very heated general election matchup with Donald Trump. Obviously, Donald Trump had the economy to run on. Now, there could be some issues with that. Obviously, people are criticizing his handling of the coronavirus. Maybe that could have some bad effects on the economy, which could negatively affect him. But at this point, we're going to be doing the updated battleground map, not necessarily my prediction, but the battleground map. So as always, we will do the states that I believe are going to be safe no matter what for this election. Now, these states are always going to be safe at this point. They could trend some way in the future, but at this point they're going to go like this: Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, West Virginia, and that is going to be it. So there's 125 safe electoral votes, states that are going to go by over 10 points to Donald Trump no matter what. And then for Joe Biden, he's going to win Washington, Oregon, California, as well as Hawaii, Illinois, New York, Vermont, and then all the Northeast except for New Hampshire and Maine. But Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, D.C., as well as Maine's first district, he will win by a safe margin. So that puts Joe Biden at 183 safe electoral votes. These states are going to go to Joe Biden by over 10 points, regardless of what happens, pretty much. And then Donald Trump will get 125 safe electoral votes. Now, next, we're going to do the likely lean and tilt states at this point. How would these states go? We'll start down south in this area this time. Texas is going to go by a likely margin pretty much regardless of what happens. Joe Biden would have done better in the state of Texas than Bernie Sanders would have. Obviously, Joe Biden won the state of Texas in the Democratic primary by 5 points, but Joe Biden will be able to win over some of those suburban voters, and we do see that the state is trending a little bit, obviously, with the Latino vote as well becoming a lot more prevalent, but that state is going to go to a likely margin at this point to Donald Trump regardless. Now, from the state of Florida, this state is always going to be close, but at this stage in the campaign, I'm going to put it by a tilt margin. The state of Florida has not gone to a non-incumbent since Henry Clay won it in 1924 against Calvin Coolidge, and that was a very long time ago, almost 100 years ago at this point. So it's very hard to flip Florida to a non-incumbent. Obviously, we saw in 2018 with the so-called blue wave that did not really happen in the state of Florida. And I think we're going to see something similar where Donald Trump will win it by just under 1 point, but he will still win the state regardless. Going down near the state of Georgia. I think Georgia, some people are starting to be a likely margin, but I do think that it's going to be a lean margin, probably around 3 to 4 points. The trends in this state are real. We see the Atlanta suburbs are becoming a lot more Democratic, and they would vote for someone like Joe Biden, who can get a broad range of electoral support across the board, and that will prove key to him in the state of Georgia, getting it a lot closer than it ever has been in a long time. But Donald Trump is still going to win the state by a lean margin here. Going up to the east here, we'll first do these states over here. Nevada is going to be tilt to Joe Biden at this point. The Democratic electorate in this state is heavily skewed very left-wing. That is why they went to Bernie Sanders by a large margin, also due to the fact that there's a high Latino population. Whether Joe Biden can turn those voters out, the voters who may be disillusioned with Bernie Sanders not being the nominee, is another question. But at this point, I would say that Nevada is still going to be a tilt blue state, because if Hillary Clinton was able to win one of the pure toss-up states, I can't see Joe Biden losing it. And we'll see when I talk about the rest of these states. You'll see why that makes sense. But at this point, this state could easily flip. But at this point, I'm going to put it by a tilt margin towards Joe Biden. Colorado is going to be lean, and New Mexico is going to be likely. These states are very similar in many ways. Obviously, the economic impact on the state of New Mexico could have been something Trump could have ran on when the economy is doing very well. But at this point, you might see that there's going to be a tough economic situation, which he will no longer be able to run on in the state of New Mexico. And as for the state of Colorado, Joe Biden did not do as well here in the Democratic primary, but he will be able to turn out enough of the voters in the suburbs and the Denver urban area to be able to win this state by a comfortable margin. Going up here to the state of North Carolina. North Carolina is going to be by a lean margin at this point. A lot of people are saying this state could be a larger margin. A lot of people are saying this state could have been a closer margin. Obviously, we saw that Joe Biden is up here in the polls by about 3.5 points here. Obviously, you could argue that's because polls are skewed to the Democrats in terms of when they're doing Democratic primary polling and general election polling at the same time. But it is going to be a state that is going to be more competitive than last time. I think it is a state that Hillary Clinton thought she was going to be able to win last time, and then she ended up losing it by 5. But this time it is going to be a bit closer than that. I think it'll go by around 2 to 3 points to Donald Trump, which will be a closer margin than last time, but he is going to win it by a lean margin at this point. Going up to the state of Virginia. Virginia is going to be by a likely margin. I don't think that there's really much that can change this. Joe Biden is part of the establishment, and he is going to win this state by a likely margin. The Nova counties are having a very heavy influence on the rest of the state, no matter how Republican or Democratic they vote. And that is going to be a important thing to watch out because it's trending blue. It's been heavily trending blue ever since it first went to the Democrats back in 2008 with Barack Obama for the first time in like 30 years or something. And now it is going to go by a likely margin to Joe Biden at this point. So there shouldn't be much need to campaign in the state of Virginia. Just looking at the broader standpoint of this. We'll go up here to the northeast. I think that Maine at large is going to be a likely margin to Joe Biden at this point, and Maine's second district, sorry, is going to be a likely margin to Donald Trump. Obviously, we saw with the ranked choice voting in 2018, this state flipped blue. The House of Representatives district flipped blue here from Maine's second district, but this district is still going to go to Donald Trump by a likely margin, despite the economic impact that we might be having. And the economic impact, just to not underestimate it, is going to have an impact. It is going to be an important thing to look at. And while this is not a prediction, this is showing how these states stand right now, and the economic impact is not to be underestimated. And due to that, that's why you see some of these states are being a lot closer than you might have otherwise predicted. Going to the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire is also going to be a teal blue state. Now, Hillary Clinton barely won this state in 2016, but the Republicans don't have a very good Senate challenger here. And in terms of the 2020 election map, for the presidential election, Joe Biden did not do very well here in the primaries, but obviously you saw Pete Buttigieg do very well, and a lot of those voters will go back to Joe Biden. And just because Joe Biden did not do very well here in the primary does not mean that he's not going to do well in the general election. And as it stands now, it would be a teal margin, just to state the importance of this state being a very close state. But at this point, I still think that it is going to go to Joe Biden. It hasn't been red for a very long time. Then we'll do the Rust Belt here. First of all, Nebraska's second district is going to be by a lean margin. Not much to say about this. Never had much to say about this, but it hasn't gone since 2008, and I don't see it going this time either. And it'll kind of be representative of what the rest of the Rust Belt is like once we talk about it in a second. So first, we are going to go to the state of Ohio, and Ohio is going to go by a lean margin. A lot of people have been saying this could even go by a safe margin, but we've seen a lot of polls, a lot of other things like that, not just polls, but the approval ratings, everything related to that, where Joe Biden could get the state a lot closer. A lot of people have been showing, and it's shown that it has been trending to the red column, but this state will come back if there's a hard economic impact. We saw the tariffs had an impact, and now this is probably going to have an impact. And in terms of how this is going to affect the current state of the race, I think that it would be by a lean margin, probably by around 4 to 5 points. But it could get to be a larger margin than that. We don't really know. From Iowa, it will be a bit more red than that. It will be by a likely margin. We saw some polls that showed it by a very wide margin. So at this point, I'm pretty comfortable putting it at a likely margin. Probably won't get much closer than that. It is trending red as well. The state of Minnesota is going to go by a lean margin. People are saying this is going to flip. I don't see it flipping. I just don't really see much chance of that, especially if Joe Biden picks Amy Klobuchar as his nominee. Then it would be more than a lean margin. But at this point, it is going to be by a lean margin, and then that is going to make Joe Biden at this point getting to 232 electoral votes, which is as many as Hillary got last time in 2016. So we get to the 3 states here, and then we'll go down to Arizona in a second. I think we'll just do them all at once here. Michigan is going to be tilt blue. Pennsylvania is going to be tilt blue. Wisconsin is going to be tilt red. Now, if we've seen that Wisconsin really does not like Joe Biden, we saw Michigan, especially Joe Biden has proven he can be able to turn out the voters in the cities, and obviously won every county, so he's proven he can also turn out voters in the rural counties, and that's going to be important for Joe Biden because that's something that Hillary Clinton could not do. And I think that 2016 was more of a fluke for Michigan, so at this point, Michigan is going to go into the blue column. I'm always going to put it a lean margin because it's similar to a state like Indiana, for example, where Obama won in 2008 and then Romney won it by a large margin in 2012. And it won't be as bad as that this time for Donald Trump, but the state of Michigan is going to flip back. Another thing with the state of Pennsylvania, Joe Biden does even better in the polls in Pennsylvania than he does in the state of Michigan. And he was born here, and he's still proven that he can turn out white working class voters that Hillary didn't get last time, especially not in the primary and even in the general as well. And this state at this point would be a tilt blue state. And then finally, from the state of Wisconsin, it will be a tilt red state just due to the fact that we've seen the polls have shown it a lot closer. It is more of a Bernie field state, and some of the voters might not want to turn to Joe Biden. And this state is a bit more of a Republican state. You saw in 2018 the governorship only flipped blue by 1.5 points. That's less than what it was in Arizona for the Senate election. And that was with a pretty polarizing governor in Scott Walker, some people argue. And at this point, the state is going to be by a tilt red margin, which is going to be different from Michigan and Pennsylvania, but at this point, I'm pretty comfortable putting it like that. And then Arizona, I'm actually going to leave as a pure toss-up state. We saw that the state has been trending blue for a very long time. It trended 4 points to the blue column in 2016, and then it's trended another 6.5 points in terms of the presidential election to the Senate election in 2018. And we see Joe Biden actually has done very well in the polls here. Not as good as Wisconsin, but I think the polls here are a bit more accurate. He did very well here in the primary. Even if not as good as Hillary, but if you factor in the Michael Bloomberg vote, things like that. And if Joe Biden can turn out the Latino vote, that'll be important to him. And at this point, I'm ready to put this state as a pure toss-up state because I think at this point, the state could go either way, and the economic impact is not to be underestimated. Whether it is purely Trump's fault or not, this is going to hurt Donald Trump, whether you like it or not. The stock market is crashing. We're going to see an uptick in unemployment and a downward spiral in terms of the job numbers, and that is going to hurt Donald Trump, and that's going to hurt him in states like Arizona. And at this point, I'm not sure how bad the economic impact is going to be. That's why I still put states like Wisconsin and Florida to Donald Trump's column. But at this point, nobody is at 270 electoral votes with the pure battleground map out here. It is a wide battleground map, this time wider than almost any time before, and it is going to be a very interesting election. This is just my battleground map. This is not my prediction, but this is how I think these states would go at this point, not necessarily a prediction, just from all the information we've had, not how I'm predicting it's going to be in November. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe as always, and I will see you guys later.